Today I'm joined by Martina Watts, who is the newest member of our team and is our resident nutritionist. Hi Martina.
Hi Gerard.
Hi there, and welcome aboard, so to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming to talk to me. To give people an idea of how you came to nutrition, can you give us a bit about your background? Tell us a little bit about how you grew up and
Sure.
the elements that contributed to your journey.
To my journey. Well, I didn't know anything about nutrition at all. It was not, I think I was probably thrown into it at the deep end. So I grew up in Nigeria. My father was an engineer and was building dams and canals out there. And there wasn't very much actually in terms of fresh vegetables or good quality, so-called good quality nutrition. I remember growing up on cereals and Nestle milk, dried milk. We didn't have that much meat or fresh fish or anything like that. And there was a lot of sugar. We had a lot of sugar, white bread. I remember Marmite sandwiches on white bread. Oh, lovely. I took those to school. So I didn't have the best of, I didn't have a clue about it, and neither did my mother. I was growing up in the 60s. So I was often ill, had lots of antibiotics and things, lots of vaccines. At the age of 9, I was sent to boarding school because the schooling wasn't ideal in Nigeria, and my mother's German. So they packed me off to boarding school, and the food was very, very different. So lots of meat, lots of dairy, and put on quite a bit of weight. Had all sorts of sort of gut issues, and things like PMS, so skin problems, lots of headaches and migraines. Growing up as a teenager, I was never really felt well. I was having one rash after the other. Colds a lot of immune system issues, and never really sort of got to the bottom of it. Doctors couldn't really help. And then there was a coup in Nigeria. My parents came over to England and settled here, and after doing my A-levels over there in Germany, I came over here to go to university, do modern languages. And then even in my 20s, there was always health niggles. Nothing really severe, but always never feeling well, always feeling really tired, headaches, PMS, just never really feeling well, no energy.
This was a constant.
Yeah, constant. I always felt never really as energetic or well as other people seem to be. Certainly the rest of my family seemed to have much more energy and seemed to be weller, and I put it down to sort of hypochondria, or just couldn't figure out what it was. Also felt depressed a lot as well, suffered from a lot of depression. Could be the constant moving around continents as well, from Africa to Germany to England. Never really settling. But I did settle here, and I did get married here. And then found in my late 20s that I couldn't get pregnant. And it was only through a lot of effort and pills that I did manage to get pregnant, and conceived my eldest son. He's now in his 20s. Had a really difficult pregnancy and birth, and it was only and when he was born, he was automatically quite a difficult baby in terms of always being ill with colds and coughs and ear infections, had lots of antibiotics. I didn't know any better at that time. And he also was very hyperactive and had severe allergies. So whenever I started trying him on a new food, he'd swell up. and he was covered in eczema as well. So that was very difficult, having such a sensitive child. And by chance I heard about the Hyperactive Children's Support Group, and I contacted the woman who ran it, a lady called Sally Bunday, who was really fantastic. And she said, well, he may have nutritional deficiencies, have him tested. And sure enough, and I did, and sure enough, he came up with, quite low in mineral levels, like zinc and magnesium, things like that, and quite high in toxic metals, like aluminium. So that was my first inkling that there was actually something biochemically not quite right. He also had constant gut problems as well,
Like you do.
Yes, a lot of bloating, sort of IBS type symptoms, many issues. And behaviourally, he was just off the wall and very difficult to pacify, and it was just quite a rough ride with him. My second son was born, and he also had severe allergies, at which at a point I was already visiting all the allergy specialists in the UK, the doctors, going from one doctor to another and seeing all the people, in London, in Eastbourne, everywhere. And nobody seemed to be able to help me. My kids had really quite severe allergies. They were given the EpiPen, and the healthcare profession were very understanding, were very nice, but they didn't really know what to do with them. And this is, we're talking 20 odd years ago. So I by chance heard about the Institute for Optimum Nutrition, about nutritional therapy and how it might be able to help with these sort of problems, gut problems, allergy problems, sensitivities to the environment. Because they were my kids were not only allergic to foods, they were also allergic to things like dust and animals, like cats. I couldn't take them to a circus or to a zoo or even a farm. So it was quite isolating.
Yeah.
Or children's parties. It was very difficult. And so I saw the course and saw the curriculum and thought, I've got to do this. It might help us. So I did, and cobbled the money together and just got on the course and did it. And it really did change my life, actually, learning about the whole person and how our gut bacteria, how influential they are for our immune system, for our mental health, for our, energy levels, for our hormones. And I got myself well, and I got my kids well. They're now in their 20s and they're doing very well. They've got minor food intolerances, but maybe a few, but they don't have the severe allergies anymore. They were really my guinea pigs, if you like. Poor them. I changed their diet. I gave them targeted supplementation. We learned about that on the course. We were trained to deal with people with chronic conditions such as those. And it was a learning process, but it really had a massively positive impact on my life, and I heard some fantastic lecturers as well. So just learned so much about science. I'd been in languages before, so I didn't necessarily have a science background, so I had to learn a lot about biology and chemistry. It was really rewarding. And I then went on to become a nutritional therapist because I thought, well, I know that there are a lot of other people who are having similar issues. Other mothers with allergic children, other people with depression or PMS or IBS type issues, skin problems that can be helped, without medication, but with diet and potentially supplementation as well. So, and I also felt that these things weren't really being looked at by the medical profession. Because they didn't have time and it wasn't on their curriculum.
I gather the nutritional training for a doctor is something like 6 hours.
It is, yes, yeah. So, and there's so many conditions that can be helped, like diabetes or, thyroid problems, adrenal issues. And So I went on to do that, became a nutritional therapist. I started writing a lot. I wrote for a column for the Argus for 10 years. Met a lot of influential nutritionists and scientists who I then interviewed also for the Argus.
The Argus being the local paper.
Local paper for Sussex, yeah, Brighton, Sussex. And that got me known, got me a name. People liked my columns, so they kept me on. They even paid me at that stage. That was brilliant. And people knew where to find me. So it was got a website, saw lots and lots of clients, and I found, I've been doing it now almost for 20 years, and I find it incredibly rewarding. Just to go into people's backstory, figure out, it's a detective work to figure out where what's been influencing people, how they've been affected, and where I can sort of find leverage to intervene nutritionally to improve their symptoms. Obviously not severe medical conditions or severe mental health conditions. I've also put on a lot of conferences, about 9 or 10, in conjunction with Pavilion, on mental health, mainly mental health actually, because that was something that I found very interesting. How our environment, how our diet, how our lifestyles can actually affect how we feel and what our mood's like. It's not something that's really been tackled by the powers that be. It's mainly about drugs, isn't it? It's mainly about talking therapies.
Yeah, I think it's really... I had no idea till I talked to a nutritionist that there was even any connection between nutrition and what goes on in your head. I figured that it could affect what goes on in your body, but I had no idea that your mental health or otherwise could be so strongly influenced by that. It's quite an eye-opener.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then, but when we think about it, it does become clear. I mean, if we drink alcohol, it affects us, doesn't it? Or take drugs, or even have, lots of sugar in one hit, it affects us. Or, additives in some children. So it's quite logical when we think about it, but it's not something that's, I think everyone who might think they are affected should try that first before they try anything else, really, because it's so fundamental, isn't it?
Why did you try it? I mean, there are various ways that human beings seek to address ailments, aren't there? And or to just address the way they're feeling on a general level. But you went to nutrition. Do you think that was because of the allergies? Do you think that's why you went in that direction?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. And I probably did some reading around, how diet and nutrition and lifestyle and environment really have a fundamental effect on the whole system, on just at a cellular level. Just think about not drinking for a day, becoming dehydrated. It really affects your speed of thought, your energy levels. So yeah, it's and it's been going on for centuries, hasn't it? Think about chicken soup, Jewish chicken soup for getting people well after they've been ill. It's just been so ingrained and so fundamental for forever. And
When you started learning about all this, how did it affect your health? I mean, was it a long process to get better, or was it gradual, or did it happen in stages?
It just happened gradually as I was learning more and more about it. About how, what the nutrient levels in our current vegetables in the supermarket. Then thinking, oh, okay, let's go and get some better quality ones. Learning about pesticides, learning about gut health, and how it's affected by our sort of standard diet and refined foods. Learning about things like antibiotics and the decimation they cause in the gut. Not that they're not needed at times, of course they are. But how they really, and there's a lot of research now into how the microbiome is, the bacterial colonies in our gut are really influencing really everything from weight gain to mental health. It's quite profound, and there's more genetic material in those bacteria than there is in our cells. You know, we've got hundreds and hundreds of species in our guts, and they can be, some of them can be pathogenic. And
what does pathogenic?
Pathogenic, they can be disease causing, and or certainly imbalanced, and that affects everything. That affects your gut, the status in your gut, but also your skin, for example, or your lungs or your sinuses. They they have a profound influence on us and our children.
So, how did you start feeling when you started feeling better? I mean, did you notice yourself getting healthier, or
Yes.
happier, or both?
Both. And yeah, I mean, I started feeling better after I started cutting out certain things and introducing others. It was a gradual process, and I always, do with clients what they're comfortable with. So, and what they can sort of tolerate, really. So I won't sort of put everybody on a sort of gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, everything-free diet. I think it's best done in stages. But there are certain foods that we are consuming all the time that are not particularly gut healthy, gut friendly, person friendly, and the things that are in them.
What kind
of high levels of salt, for example, in the bread.
Right.
It's so denutrified that they whack a lot of salt in.
If someone's listening to this, I'm trying to sort of put myself in the place of someone who would be listening to this and thinking, that sounds really interesting, but where do they start? Where do I start? They would be thinking perhaps.
Doing a food diary is a good idea.
Yeah.
It depends on also what their symptoms are. If they have, most people are much more clued up about nutrition these days. There's so much around, on the net and in magazines, and there's so much information, isn't there? The problem is it's quite confusing. There's a lot of it about, and there's a lot of conflicting sort of paleo diet, and there's this diet, and there's the cabbage soup diet.
Every day something seems to contradict
absolutely.
something from yesterday and so on.
I found the healthiest, the most research is on the Mediterranean diet, which is quite balanced, really. So you've got your fish and your red meat occasionally, and lots and lots of veggies.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, that it sort of depends what's wrong with somebody if they've got a specific ailment, but there are general
rules.
There are general kind of things we can do to help.
Yes,
aren't there?
Absolutely.
Can you say clues about that?
Absolutely. So maybe the first thing is a lot of people are eating all the time. So from morning till night, we tend to sort of eat quite mindlessly, don't we, these days? Just go and have a snack, and if we're bored, comfort eating. There's a lot of snack foods in this country, I've noticed, more so than in many other countries. I don't know why that is. Lots of crisps, lots of varieties of packets of crisps.
Yeah.
Have you noticed you go into the shop and there's 3 aisles of crisp packets? So I think not eating quite so frequently, because it's quite, every time we eat, it takes something out of your gut's got to digest the food, and so we should, if you think back to hunter-gatherer times, it was unlikely that they would have been eating all the time. They would have had some fasting stages. So eating, perhaps it's sticking to meal times, maybe some healthy snacks in between, but also think about hydration, drinking, not over drinking, but having enough, and not just living on teas and coffees, which are kind of food if you're adding sugar and milk. That's another form of nutrition, isn't it? So maybe water.
What's the deal with water then? What's wrong with not drinking enough?
Many people are sort of dehydrated, and it really affects how you think, how fast you think, how your energy levels are. So absolutely vital. And we often, our thirst centres get confused. Our thirst and hunger centres get confused when we're dehydrated. So often when we feel hungry, we're actually thirsty.
Okay.
So it's a good thing to do, sort of have your 6 glasses of water a day. And they're now advocating 5 to 10 lots of vegetables or fruit per day. Sort of, I wouldn't go too much for the fruit because that can be overly sugary. So with your meal times, berries, apples, maybe in between, and veggies, lunch and dinner. That's a good bet. And and a good form of protein with most meals. That keeps most people pretty fit, pretty well nourished. Not dining out on sort of the white bread and the pasta, because a lot of people I find also tend to sort of have the same sort of foods with every meal. It's bread and it's milk and it's sugar and it's caffeine. And it's a good idea to actually write down what you're eating. Do a food diary for 3 days and look at and see what you're eating. And it's pretty samey, cheese and marmalade and Marmite.
On white bread.
Yeah. But again, I've noticed over the last 10 years that people have got a lot more clued up. Often people come in to see me and they are actually on a brilliant diet, better than mine probably. I'm certainly not perfect, but they still have health issues, and that's when diet's just not enough, where you've got to sort of heal the gut, find out whether there are any sort of environmental toxins that are lurking, look at liver health, look at nutrient deficiencies, potentially toxic metals, and that's what we do as nutritional therapists. We're trained to do that.
I was struck by you mentioning toxic metals when you mentioned people having too much aluminium. How on earth does that happen? That seems really
bizarre.
We don't eat iron, do we? So,
no, exactly. Well, that is an interesting question, and something maybe a lot of people aren't aware of. We have more pollution now. We're surrounded by more industrial pollution than we ever have been before. Our food is, packaged in plastics and in aluminium, and processed through certain machinery, or we might have batteries around with cadmium in them. Aluminium's often found in soy products, or linings of things. So the thing is, if you're really well nourished, so you've got good nutrition, you've got a good gut health, all of that stuff, and you've got good mineral levels in your system, you won't pick up these metals as quickly. But if you are a child, for example, and you're living in an old house with lead piping or copper piping or whatever, and you have allergies or you've got gut health issues, you can, and you're not picking up your minerals from your food, maybe your diet's not brilliant because you're a fussy eater, for example, you're much more likely to pick up the iron then, the lead. For example, if you're iron deficient, you might be you'll be more prone to picking up toxic metals than you would if you were really well nourished and with a well functioning gut, for example. So yes, absolutely, and that can really affect children's learning abilities, concentration, focus, even social interaction.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's quite that's scary almost. You also talked about supplements. I come across this attitude quite a lot. I'm sure you do as well. Just like on Facebook or whatever, when people people sort of scoff at the need for supplements or for juicing or stuff like that by just saying if you eat a healthy diet with your 5 a day, then you don't need things like that. And that the supplement industry is like a con, essentially. What do you think about that? There's a lot of.
I can understand that, and ideally, I would prefer not to either take them or even recommend them, because it's another expense, and it would be much nicer if we could just get everything through our food. So in an ideal world, that would be brilliant. But I do find that some people, even if they, as I say, even if they're on a perfect diet, they're still often deficient in. Well, look at vitamin D.
Especially in England.
Yeah, look at vitamin D or iron. Is one of the biggest deficiencies. Magnesium. We're just not getting, for some reason, whether it's the quality of our food, the way it's been grown on maybe mineral deficient soils, or stored or cooked, or by the time you've got it back from the supermarket and you've left it in the bottom of your fridge and then cooked it to death, whether there's anything left. So we seem to be getting less nutrition, good quality nutrition from our food. And then also, of course, remember, we've got that double whammy. We've got also the elevated levels of pollution that we didn't used to have maybe 50 or 100 years ago. And in order to actually process those pollutants, we need more nutrients. We need more minerals. We need more amino acids. We need more vitamins to actually take those pollutants and get rid of them.
Okay.
Yeah, the liver needs to do that. So if we haven't got enough, they'll accumulate.
I've never really thought about it.
So it's that double whammy of poorer quality nutrition and elevated levels of pollutants, and maybe also stress too, because when you're stressed, you need more magnesium, you need more B vitamins, you need more vitamin C, you need more whatever it is. So, and then lifestyles. Burning the candle at both ends, going to the gym 5 times a week, sort of using up all your nutrients, trying to have a healthy lifestyle, walking on polluted roads, worrying about finances, etc., etc. And I do think it's affecting levels of fertility as well.
Really?
Yeah. There's definitely a problem. Often people find it difficult to get pregnant, or I certainly had problems, and I think my body was actually saying, actually, you shouldn't get pregnant. You're not well enough.
Right. Yeah.
It's Mother Nature saying, not a good idea, and Mother Nature was right.
Yeah.
Because my kids were really, really sick, and it took a long time for them, to get better. They're better now, but it was, it was hard.
Can we talk a little bit about you've joined up with us to supplement, shall we say, our mindfulness course. You see what I did there?
Yeah, and, brilliant.
And can we, you've written about hydration, and you've written about general kind of the way that sort of food and mindfulness kind of dovetail. Because obviously what we have to do here is deliver a generic kind of course with the opportunity then for people to move on to a sort of one-to-one specialist kind of sessions with you. What other stuff would you say on a generic front we can cover? What's the most important things, do you think, after hydration?
After hydration, sort of looking after your gut, really, I think. Being mindful about how you eat, when you eat, how fast you eat, whether you chew your food, the whole digestive process that we don't really think about. We just sort of eat the pizza in front of the telly and or walk down the road and with a sandwich or
How
baguette.
many people do you see with coffee in their hand walking down the road?
Yeah, whatever, and just not think about it. Just goes in and gives us a brief moment of pleasure, and then it comes out again sometime later. But we don't really think about what happens in between, and I think that would be really good to focus on a bit, because we don't actually, we have that saying, you are what you eat. But it's actually not true. You are what you digest and absorb, because your digestive system is just like a long tube, and it's outside of you, everything you eat, until it gets absorbed into your bloodstream. And
if it goes through that tube without being absorbed, you might as well not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, and in order for it to be broken down into small units, things have got to happen. And the digestive process actually begins in your brain when you see the food.
Okay.
So what happens when you see something that you really fancy eating, something delicious that you've just cooked, or somebody else has just cooked, you begin to salivate, don't you? So you're seeing something, you're smelling it, and the messages from the brain are going into the body and going to your salivary glands to produce saliva. And saliva is really important because it contains enzymes to break the food down. So it's not just the mechanical chewing of your food, it's also the enzymes in the saliva that break your food down, and then your food goes down from your mouth into your stomach, and then it gets further, it gets processed. So there's a whole sort of conveyor belt-like process that goes on, and you can have big influence on that if you just chuck it down your gullet without thinking about it. Your body has to work that much harder to break it down. Whereas if you take some minutes, some time just before you actually start eating to look at your food, to smell it, to just appreciate it, and even be grateful for it, then you are much more likely to chew better, to chew well, to take your time eating it and break it down properly before it actually gets to the stomach. So your poor old stomach doesn't have to work quite so hard. And you're much less likely to sort of have indigestion and other sort of gut problems that come with it, bloating, feeling overly full and stuffed and uncomfortable. And appreciate your food too, you're probably less likely then, if you appreciate your food more, less likely to go for the sort of fast food, sort of junk food that you might otherwise have.
We teach mindful eating as part of mindfulness, being pretty much what you said, appreciating it, taking a bit of time out to smell it and so on. I think it's got to be one of the most challenging things.
When you're hungry, yes.
Well, yeah, it's certainly for me. I've just I really struggle with that. Is that habit? Is the reason I struggle with that? Is that just because I've spent a lifetime guzzling food down, or is it more of a challenge than that on some other level?
I suspect it's different in a lot of cases. I mean, I've spoken to lots of people about it, and some people say, oh, well, it was always a race in our household, we had 5 siblings and we had to eat our food down quickly, otherwise we didn't get any, or I wanted to go out to play, or, I was just hungry. So people don't think about it, and I think becoming aware, I get people to write themselves a note and stick it on their dining room table.
Right.
Just, eat slowly, chew well. And it's very interesting because when you're in this, we've got 2 nervous systems, haven't we? The sympathetic nervous system, the fight and flight. And then we've got the parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest. And when you're in stress, when you're stressed or, in that sort of fight-flight mode, your gut actually shuts down and you don't produce your digestive juices to help break down your food. So you're not going to digest very well if you eat in that state. So to actually sit down, calm yourself, take a few breaths, maybe 3. I always say to people, sit down, 3 deep breaths in and out before you actually start your meal. Activates your parasympathetic nervous system. Gets you out of fight and flight into your rest and digest.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Just 3 slow deep breaths. In for 4 or 5, and then pause and then out for 4 or 5. Do that 3 times before each main meal, and then you're in your, that's triggered your parasympathetic nervous system. Then eat. You will eat more. Try it out, Gerard.
I will.
And feedback to me.
I'll give it a go and report back.
And report back. I want to know. If you're doing that 3 times a day, that's just good for your central nervous system anyway, and certainly good for your gut, because you'll digest much, much better. Hurried eating habits are, lead to a lot of problems.
Yeah, I can imagine, and I can imagine they're pretty comprehensively practiced by everybody as well. Which leads me on to another thing that I'm trying to, I don't know if devil's advocate's the right word, but I'm trying to cover what I suspect will be a lot of people's kind of initial reservations, and I suspect another one is this kind of fear that you're going to have to kind of enter this worthy monastic almost type sort of lifestyle where everything's got to be so well behaved. How was it for you in that respect? Did you? I suppose you were coming from a position of
need.
You had more leverage perhaps in that respect. But if somebody's just sort of thinking, okay, I should get a bit more healthy, but this sounds a bit boring, truthfully.
Yes, yeah.
What would you say to that?
Absolutely. I find that the sicker people are, or the more they want to meet a certain goal, like get pregnant, for example, or have a healthy pregnancy or a healthy baby, the more leverage I have with them, and the more they're willing to do. So not everybody's the same, if you look at it from a scale from 0 to 10, and I'll say to them, well, how much do you want to do? How fit do you want to be? Do you want to go up to 5, or is 10 your goal? So everybody has different sort of aims or goals. But I do generally find that once people start feeling better and think, oh my God, I don't need to have headaches, or I can actually put these clothes on without feeling bloated, or those rashes have gone, they want to do more, because they have this false sense of PMS is normal, but actually it's not. Diabetes isn't normal. Being overweight isn't normal. We've kind of normalised everything, and we've got the right kind of medication for it. Acid indigestion, that's not normal. Being constipated or having diarrhea or just feeling lousy or tired all the time, that's not normal. And I often, my biggest age group of people that I see are people in their 30s who are tired all the time, depressed, and they should be in the prime of their lives, shouldn't they? Yeah. But they're not. So that's, when they start, then they embark on the journey, they sort of want to do more, and then I leave it up to them. I discuss it with them. You don't want to have, for example, alcohol seems to be one of the biggest problems to give up. So drink at the weekends rather than every night.
I was going to say,
they're compromises.
Yeah.
Or drink certain things, or drink water with it, or everybody has their limits. My weakness is chocolate, so I'll make myself, instead of getting a Cadbury's, bar of chocolate, if I fancy some chocolate, I'll make myself a hot chocolate with soya milk or coconut milk and raw chocolate and some stevia or some xylitol. I don't like feeling deprived, and I don't like having my clients feel deprived.
I think that's what I was trying to get at before.
Yeah.
I heard a great phrase the other day, well, it struck me as great, that good is not the opposite of perfect.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what scares me, certainly if not other people, is
No.
this idea that you have to go perfect. You know. That
No, you have to have alternatives. You have to have acceptable alternatives. Otherwise, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Because you'd rather just have all the stuff and then have a headache, take a pill or something. No, and I'm certainly not a masochist. I can say that without I need to have my treats too.
Yeah.
But I'll have healthy ones, and I feel better. And that is experience. That is experience.
Yeah, it's the pain pleasure principle, isn't it? I think once you can start associating this stuff with pleasure,
yes,
as opposed to denial, which is just
exactly
a sort of subdivision of pain or whatever, then I think that's.
I think it's a definition of stupid to not to want to feel well, or to have try and we've only got a short span on this planet, to feel as well as possible, to have a better quality of life, so that you can actually do more.
Absolutely.
And get more out of life.
But if it's that obvious, how come you've got any customers? It's a strange one, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. Well, it's not that obvious, is it? Because we're surrounded by advertising and marketing, which is very clever, isn't it? You go to the supermarket and you'll have at the checkout, you'll have all the sort of junk food, the sweeties, and on the other side of the checkout, you'll have the headache pills and the antacid medication, don't you? So you go in and have the food, and then you take the pills with you to counteract the effects of the food.
Yeah.
Right? And I really feel for the mothers of children who have to sort of wage that battle of trying to get their kids to eat healthy stuff so that they're not sick, so that they can go to school and mums can go to work, whatever. And that battle should be between the government and the food companies, and not the mothers and the children.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's not fair.
It's insane the way we've kind of got to that point, isn't it? Where we're in a society where we're just kind of like force feeding rubbish to ourselves,
and all that knowledge about nutrition, that wisdom about what makes. We've evolved over centuries, millennia, and all the knowledge about what herbs and what foods are good for us and which ones are poisonous. That's kind of being mislearned. It just takes 1 or 2 generations of microwave cooking and junk food, and where we've lost the art of cooking and healthy eating well and nourishing ourselves to make us strong. And that's all being lost. We do watch a lot of cookery programs, don't we? We don't necessarily make the food, but we do watch a lot.
Every program seems
to be.
And they all just, when you get professional cooks on telly, no matter what they're cooking, it all seems to be, and then add a cup of sugar and everything. It's kind of
weird.
Not even sweet dishes. They seem to add sugar to everything.
It is. Oh, don't get me started on sugar.
No.
It's probably one of those things.
Yeah, there's a whole other interview to be had.
That is.
Probably, isn't there?
That is.
So what happens when someone comes to see you then? If somebody was thinking about coming to see you, you get them to do a food diary.
I asked them to fill in quite a detailed questionnaire. It's actually on my website, and it goes into their symptoms. What is it that they're suffering from? Are they on any medication? What's their diet like? What are their stools like? Rather sad things like that. But I'd like to have a good look at that before I actually see them. And then
the form, that is, not
the form, yes. No, not the stools. I have had one person who brought their stools in.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
But I declined to see them. Well, you can do very sophisticated stools testing nowadays. Or, we have access to all kinds of functional tests.
Was that Gillian McKeith was big on that, wasn't she?
Yeah, well, I won't look at that myself. Thank you very much. No, I leave that to the lab.
Yeah.
So I'll get, once they come in for a consultation, which is 90 minutes, I'll go through the form with them and really quiz them about their whole background, medical history, dietary history, and just go into their symptoms with them and figure out a strategy. We put together a strategy of trying to sort of manage the symptoms and potentially improve them as well. So I see a lot of gut problems. I see a lot of joint, weight, hormonal issues, fatigue, that sort of thing. Immune type issues I see a lot of as well.
Are they the things you think nutrition could be best applied to?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, mental health as well. So many people come through the door saying they're not feeling focused, that they're tired, that they feel depressed or anxious, a lot of anxiety, and that's nutritional therapy is brilliant for depression and anxiety. In fact, I actually edited 2 books on those topics exactly, and also food addiction. Which the scientists, they debate about whether it is actually exists or not. But ask any woman who's got PMS, and chocolate addiction, whether that's an addiction. They would beg to differ, I think.
Yes, sure. Yeah. Do you want to plug your books and your website and so on?
Well, the website's www.thehealthbank.co.uk, and I have all 3 books on there. 49 Ways to Eat Yourself Well, there's the latest one, and the other 2 are nutrition and mental health, and the other one's on nutrition and addiction. So feel free to have a look. And if you want a little bit more in-depth information, more technical information on what to do to feel better, both physically and mentally.
Yeah, and of course you are going to be contributing to our courses as well, which we are delighted about
Great.
On our website, yes, which is brightonmindfulnesscentre.com, and specifically the Turning Point course. Thank you ever so much, Martina. I really enjoyed that. And,
Thank you, Gerard.
And yeah, absolutely fascinating. I learned a lot, so I hope other people did too.
Well, if there are any sort of specific questions, I'm very happy to answer them. Question answer. People might have specific issues or questions. They can email me. I'm always happy to answer any questions.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
Thank you for your time.